Good morning, guys. I'm Abhinaw. Um, so I'm from India, Namaste, and I'm from New Zealand, Kia ora. And that's New Zealand on the map. And you might look, why is the map upside down? Why not? And interestingly, that map puts us right in the center of the world, right where we are. So that's a difficult map I found. So yeah. I'm a civil engineer, and I worked in the industry for a couple of years, and I did my master's in the University of Auckland in construction management. I'm now continuing with a PhD there. And presentation, 4 parts now. So I'll talk about what is the purpose or the aim of the presentation, and then we'll have and the methodology I've used. Then we'll move on to the bulk of the presentation, which is about 70%. I'll talk about the discussion around the literature review I've done, what research topic I'm discussing, and then finally the presentation. Right. So the primary purpose of this paper or this presentation, investigate the use of blockchain technology in the construction industry. And within this subject, the research question I'm addressing is, how can the benefits of blockchain technology be used specifically for a BIM workflow? And for this, I've conducted a literature review. And at that point, there was not enough literature to be looked at in terms of peer-reviewed papers. So I've also taken into consideration gray literature, which includes industry reports, the discussion papers as well. Right. So moving on to the main discussion now. I'll divide this into 3 parts. In the first, I'll talk about, in the section trust, I'll talk about the information exchange process in construction and why trust is an important element. And then next, we'll look at what is blockchain technology and see how it can be used to securely record value exchange transactions between stakeholders. And finally, we'll look at the application point in proof, and we'll talk about what is the potential application of a blockchain-powered proof for recording transactions. Right, so moving on. Information or data. Information is regarded as one of the most important raw material of a construction project. And with projects spanning over between parties. So a study conducted by Sachs, about 70,000 plus transactions officially recorded in 14 projects, out of which 90% of them, as you can see, were drawing. With the introduction of BIM, information has taken the shape of 3D models, other digital outputs. Typically, an architect first creates the architectural model. Other parties collaborate with this model to form their own domain-specific models. But with time constraints and client requirements, this process is not linear anymore. It happens more parallelly and concurrently. And this is where information is exchanged without any sequence of approvals between parties. And that is why it requires to be more efficient than. Next, the paper which I did reviewed the important challenges of information exchange and looked at it from the contractual, legal, and security aspects, or to sum it up, the trust aspect of information in a project. And these are a few of the key challenges that have been identified. And since BIM is a digital revolution in construction, paper solutions such as a contract addendum doesn't sufficiently address these challenges. And this is where we'll talk about how blockchain could be a solution. Right, so the next section here. Let us first answer the very simple question, what is blockchain technology? Or let us answer the complex question, what is blockchain technology, in a very simple way. Well, it is, to put it simply, it is a new way of recording data or transactions on a database. A new way of recording data or transactions on a database. So this figure here represents the what happens in a blockchain. We won't go through the whole process now. We'll just talk about the concept and a few of the properties of blockchain. So, blockchain processes transactions in a similar way to how you enter entries in a physical ledger. So at every fixed interval of time, certain transactions are assembled into smaller groups to form blocks, similar to new pages in a physical ledger. And then these blocks, every time a new block is created, it is linked to the previous block, forming a chain, hence the term blockchain. That is as simple as it can get. But how physical ledger then? Now what blockchain does here is, this copy of the ledger, the database, is distributed among all its users who are using it in a public blockchain with the assumption, and then these users who have this database help in recording it and also maintaining it in terms of its security. So that's a kind of picture of blockchain. So how is it different from traditional database? Well, these names here are a few of the characters of data present on the blockchain, and combination of these properties enables blockchain an ability which is very important, that data or transactions can only be added or amended forward, but then you cannot remove any transaction. And any attempt to do such a thing would mean that the entity trying to do that will have to rewrite every single entry subsequent to that block, and blocks keeps progressing. Are probably not common in any other database is one, that all the information, the data, all its metadata, that is the user information, the timestamp information, is all stored on with the security of a cryptographic signature. And the second thing is that it is distributed among its users. It is not centrally owned by any service provider, so it is not in control of any third party. Right. Blockchain was primarily invented with the intention of value exchange, and one of the foremost applications of this technology was the Bitcoin protocol, and it was used for exchanging the cryptocurrency Bitcoins. Now, it had solved a real problem, which was duplication of currency. And scientists and researchers have been investigating how can this technology be used in other forms, and that is where this concept of smart contracts or decentralized applications come into the picture. Now, again, let's talk about what is smart contracts. Well, I mentioned before that blockchain has transactions on it, right? Now, if you replace this data with software code, that is where smart contracts come into the picture. So what is this software code written are data-driven. That is, it executes based on the data it receives, and that is what basically smart contracts. Another important point is the word itself is kind of a misnomer. That's why I've put a word decentralized applications. It is neither smart that it changes to situations, nor is it a contract in the sense of legal terms. But then the nature of it is that it can execute itself without any third party involved. And that is what makes it special. Right. Now we'll quickly go through how these benefits of blockchain can be used for a BIM workflow, and I'll try to use these I want to say. First thing, governance tracking. So we know that information is exchanged between stakeholders. The architect creates the model, and other parties create their own models, and they're federated. This is level 2 maturity. And when BIM moves to level 3, these parties or stakeholders are required to work on a single platform, on a single model. And this is where having ownership of information becomes important. What blockchain does is it provides a provenance mechanism, which means it lets you track the origin of the information. And this is not only help in tracking, but also can be used for transferring ownership between platform, and then data is of prime importance. With the information being recorded on the distributed ledger, this all means that it is not controlled by a third party, it is immutable to changes, and it is also a permanent record, which ups the scale of security for BIM. Next one. Now, limiting liabilities for stakeholders is important in BIM, especially in the current day. And the authoring party on the BIM is always subject to unclear. That BIM is not able to verify if certain information transferred by the author is authorized or issued by the author itself. Receiving party on the other end is subject to something called as non-repudiation of work. That authoring party denies the value or the truth of information that they have transmitted. This is where blockchain can be important. Sorry. What blockchain does is it puts out. I think I pushed the slide, I guess. Sorry. Yeah. Right. Sorry about that. Yes. Yeah. So what it does is it provides a digital certification of the what the author is submitting. I'll need to rush. Next, tracking traceability. With blockchain, it provides an inherent feature of edit tracking, and any amendments made to the information is recorded in blockchain, and the system itself acts as enough evidence for the. Finally, linking physical to the digital. Now, how is our industry different from, say, the finance industries? We deal with real-life artifacts, and this is where blockchain can be used to link physical objects onto the digital, to its digital account with a more secure mechanism, which enable auto and also help in creating live 3D models and also in supply chain management as well. Now, right. This is an example of a firm that is working with blockchain technology in BIM, and this firm is based in France, and they're doing their prototype at this point. What they do is they create a system of proofs, and these proofs are created for different scenarios of transactions. And then these proofs are on a public blockchain called Ethereum, which means that the proofs becomes inalterable and undeniable, which kind of supports you in unforeseen legal situations. Right. So before we conclude, we'll look at two important questions here. How does the industry look at blockchain technology? What do they think? And second one, what is stopping us from putting out this in the industry? Right. We've seen that major organizations are working across the world on blockchain, and a study by PwC showed that 86% of the top 600 major firms across the world are somehow engaging themselves in blockchain. And in construction industry, organizations such as Erri, the Institute of Civil Engineers, even Auto has publicly stated that they are looking into blockchain as a potential solution for many sectors within the construction industry. Now, as with any technological advancement, there are a lot of limitations around it and constraints as well. Well, I won't be talking about the technical constraints of the scalability of the technology or how does it work in terms of its constraints, but we'll look at these three basic usability limitations. The first one is, if you're using a public blockchain, blockchain can only record the event of a particular change, but it cannot pinpoint what was the change. And that's kind of a big limit at this point, because what it does is it just stores a fingerprint of the final model. It doesn't store the model itself. So you can only say that certain change was made, but it doesn't pinpoint to what it was. Next thing is, because kind of related to the next two, because it's a new technology, it is still addressing its own limitations, and which means that it is still trying to build applications in different sectors, working on its own challenges as well. And that kind of puts us in a situation where when you want to use that in the construction industry, you need to have much better knowledge in terms of data science and regulatory information when you're trying to put this into your industry. Right. In conclusion, I'll just answer a simple question. The first one, does it replace trust? Well, the answer to that is blockchain provides a mechanism, or it facilitates a platform where you can have a more trustworthy product. That's the answer. And then the second question is, can BIM workflow leverage blockchain technology? The answer to that, I feel, is yes, it can and it should. How it can do that is blockchain needs to work in the background, that is behind stage, and the user should not have a need to interact with it directly. And an important point, blockchain and BIM have this shared ability of being the single source of truth, and that's why the combination of these two kind of makes sense even more. Next, where is its application in the industry? Well, my research was from this angle, what we saw, and I feel at this level of maturity, probably a few more years, it could easily be implemented in the design phase with stakeholders working on the model. As the technology progresses, it definitely will evolve into other phases as well. Finally, is this the next big revolution for the industry? Well, that's a complicated question, and we do not have even enough evidence, at least for the construction industry, to say that it is the next big revolution. But what it can be said is, blockchain is one among the other players, such as big data, artificial intelligence, and so on, which collectively will contribute to the next big revolution to the industry. Thank you all for the time and patience. Hope you had some understanding, and I'm now open to questions.